10:01 a.m. and I'd like to call to order the teleconference meeting of the Board of Directors of Friday, December 18th, 2020. Before we begin, please, the meeting is being recorded. And Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Okay, good.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Director Arnold.
Here.
Director Frederick.
Here.
Director Garbarino.
Here.
Director Grossfeld.
Here.
Director Hernandez.
Here.
Thank you. Director Hill.
Here.
Thank you. Director Maston.
Here.
Director Moylan.
Here.
Director Rabbit.
Here.
Director Steers.
Here.
Director Sobel.
Here.
Director Stephanie.
Here.
Thank you. Director Yee.
Here.
Second Vice President Cochran.
Here.
First Vice President Theriault.
Here.
And President Barr.
Present. Welcome, everyone.
I'll now confirm the staff on the line. Dennis Mulligan.
Thank you.
Present.
Joe Wire.
Yes.
You. Ava Barr Furbish.
Present.
Tim Manolius.
Good morning, yes.
Steve Miller.
Present, good morning.
You. Mona Babauta.
Present.
Thank you. Kelly Hopper.
Present.
All right. That confirms staff on the line. Thank you.
And Jim Swindler is here.
Yeah,
Oh,
Jim
sorry,
is here.
Jim Swindler. Oh, I'm sorry. I mentally thought of Jim.
That's all right, no problem.
Thank you for tapping in, Jim. All right, I wanted to thank everyone for joining this morning, and we appreciate your continued patience as we continue to conduct our business in this manner. And as we go through, please remember to mute your phones so that we can hear everyone clearly. I'll be asking if board members have any comments or questions on the items. If there are questions, the secretary will call on you accordingly. After the discussion, we'll be taking the appropriate roll call vote. And if you are not speaking, again, please mute your phones to minimize the noise on the call. And of course, unmute when you're speaking. Each page of the meeting packet is numbered on the bottom right-hand corner for ease of use in following along. Director Grossfeld, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes. I pledge allegiance
To
the
the
flag
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. So before we move on to public comment under item 4, Madam Secretary, how many callers do we have on the line today who may be speaking under public comments?
I believe we have 6 public commenters right now currently on our list.
All right, then I believe we'll leave the time frame to 30 minutes. And if the callers could please limit their comments to 2 minutes or less, I think we can make it in our time frame. Thank you very much. Madam Secretary, would you please begin the public comment?
Thank you. I have Justine. She is going to moderate our public comment line. Justine, please introduce our first speaker.
Good morning. Our first speaker is Kimberly Renee Gamboa. Ms. Gamboa?
Yes, good morning. Good morning. My name is Kimberly Renee Gamboa, and I'm holding one of my favorite photos of my 18-year-old son, Kyle Emerson Gamboa. He is displaying a happy, beautiful smile in his high school class picture. Kyle jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge on September 20th, 2013 at 11:45 a.m. I wanted to thank you for continuing construction on the Golden Gate Bridge suicide deterrent during the COVID-19 pandemic. A suicide deterrent is more important than ever in helping people cope, especially during this crisis, and with the increasing number of youth suicides. I would also like to thank Brian Sobel for all of his hard work at the Golden Gate Bridge Transportation and Highway District, and especially for his work on the suicide deterrent. Brian was the first person from the district to contact us after we had attended our first district meeting in November of 2013. Brian showed that he actually cared about what had happened to our son, which was so important because we were still trying to come to terms that our son had actually died and he had actually jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge. Brian regularly checks in with us, and when my mom from Idaho came to a meeting, Brian gave her a Golden Gate Bridge pin, which my mom cherishes. Thank you, Brian, for your kindness, care, and compassion. We hope to see you again in the future. You will be deeply missed.
Thank you, Kimberly Renee.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Robert Estrada. Robert, go ahead.
Good morning. First of all, my heart goes out to Kyle's. I'd like to start there. Good morning. My name is Robert Estrada. I am the Regional Director of the Inland Boatmen's Union. We represent terminal agents and ferry crews for the district. I'm calling today to implore a rethink of the slated job eliminations that are set to cut through district ranks on January 4th. With the pending Biden administration clearly intending a different tack, with the current rollout of a highly effective vaccine, and with the promise of an actual bipartisan relief effort, along with the move towards allowing capital expenditures to be used for more pressing needs, the landscape under which you originally contemplated such drastic measures has undeniably shifted. What was once a draconian, though still coldly arguable, approach to the district's financial problems would now merely be draconian. When the conversation originally began, management spoke of layoffs, which carries its own ominous reality. But as time went on, the language shifted to job elimination with prerogative to rehire. The shift in the nature of what was at stake led us to realize that we must act as though it is an existential question, because for so many of our members, for your employees, it is an existential question. The district's union coalition has proposed massive team-sharing job cuts, well, cost cuts with job retention, actually, management, which would prevent the outright slashing of people from their livelihoods. The tack that you take here holds the potential not only to offer reprieve to families of hundreds of your employees and neighbors, but also to set the model for other transit agencies who may follow behind. So please use your vested discretionary powers to delay these now untimely job eliminations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Estrada.
Our next speaker is a Golden Gate passenger. Please go ahead.
Yes, good morning. Am I on now?
You are. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning. The history of Golden Gate Transit is rooted in the California legislature. Its legacy will endure past the questionable chapters each of few select members are continuing to author. And thereby, with your private agendas and vested interests superseding the very best interests of Golden Gate Transit and the lives and livelihoods of Golden Gate Transit operators. In such spirit, I am asking that one other person call in today and support the motion that I'm about to present. Seconding a motion does not concur or imply agreement. It suggests that it can be placed on an agenda and thereby be open to discussion. It is toward a restored vision and a renewed board of directors who will manifest a collaborative relationship of truth based upon integrity and based upon a collaborative respect and positive solutions. But I call for the removal of the following board members: Mr. Dennis J. Mulligan, Ms. Barbara Poffey, also serving on the Sonoma Marin Railway, Ms. Judy Arnold, President of Marin County Board of Supervisors, serving as well on Marin Transit, on the Sonoma Marin Railway, and upon the Transportation Authority of Marin, Ms. Patricia Gabarino, also serving on the Sonoma Marin Railway, and thereby all creating conflict of interest, Mr. David Rabbit, also serving on the Sonoma Marin Railway, and Mr. Brian Sobel. It is also wondered, Mr. Mulligan, I wonder if you could speak to the fact that it is known that Golden Gate Transit also receives funds based on employing minorities, persons of colors, targeted groups. I wonder if that would be referring to the Work Opportunity Tax Credit, which would assure that at the end of every year, Golden Gate Bridge Highway and Transportation is refunded $9,600 per employee. I would be grateful for your response. There should be no layoffs. Everyone has served loyally through this pandemic. I say there are solutions ahead and with hope for something better.
Thank you, ma'am.
Our next speaker this morning is David Pilpel. David, go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Great. Good morning again. I made several comments at the Finance Auditing Committee yesterday. I'm sure you all heard me, so I won't repeat them generally. I did have a chance to speak very briefly with Director Sobel yesterday afternoon. I thanked him for his public service and wished him well. He will be very much missed at this board, but he won't be far away, as he said yesterday. I also spoke very briefly with the general manager to follow up on my comments about transit coordination. He was very knowledgeable and open to discussion, so that was great. I would add that an update on the San Rafael Transit Center relocation project, I think would be great at either Transportation or the Building and Operating Committee in January or February. And just finally, on general public comment, I still hope for a good outcome in Washington. They've been talking about it for weeks and days, and they keep talking. I guess talking is good, but, you know, an actual bill and a good outcome would be nice. And so I look forward to a special board meeting, hopefully before the end of the year. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Pilpel.
Our next speaker is Shane Weinstein. Shane, go ahead.
Hi, good morning, Madam Chair, fellow directors. Shane Weinstein, President of the ATU, representing the bus drivers. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Shane.
Hello? Oh. Okay, thank you very much. You know, just yesterday at the audit committee meeting, Mr. Mulligan stated that the unions didn't get serious about bargaining until November. And it was actually quite the contrary. It was a bait and switch by the district. And Mr. Mulligan, I know that my family wouldn't appreciate the statement that you made, considering the hours I've spent away from them since September. And I would only imagine that my colleagues in your labor negotiators family feel the same way. You know, directors, on Wednesday, the MTC just passed unanimously a motion giving their bodies the ability to use all $450 million of grant funding next year to be made available for emergency operations. And we've been asking that all along. And we hope that the district will again look at that if we are going to be in need in the near future. We all hope that this money is going to come through and that's going to change the trajectory of where we're going. But if we do fall into that place again, we hope you'll look at those other accounts. You can't just turn transit on and off. These are bus operators, they're captains, they're deckhands. They all have certifications, and they're very needed. So if they go away, you might never see them back. And I just wanted to make very clear that, you know, in some of this language that's coming through the Senate, a lot of it is going to be tied to operations and payroll, and not on capital projects. And if we are going to try to use this round of money on capital projects, you're really going to have to go through the secretary and show them that you haven't furloughed or laid off workers. So I highly suggest we use this money the right way. We keep transit people here. We keep transit here for people when it returns. Thank you.
Thank you, Shane.
Our next speaker is Frank Gleason. If you've been muted on our end, please use ** to unmute yourself. Mr. Gleason? Frank Gleason? I believe we've lost Mr. Gleason.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yes, go ahead, please.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself on my phone. I actually only had one question that was regarding to the engineer's report today. I noticed that the engineer's report's quite lengthy today, and then I was trying to find out what was new in the engineer's report, and it looks like page 6 has some new stuff, and then page 7 at the top in the engineer's report today are the new items, because they were, I guess, designated by being in italics. So I was just wondering, this is the longest engineer's report that I've seen, and I was wondering what were people to the public or anybody to glean from it. I did notice that a lot of it has to do with the SDS, the Suicide Deterrent System. It looks like at one point it was $76 million, and then the first bid was $134 million. Excuse me. And the last approved money was $2 million in August, I think it was. In the project now it's like $230 million. So I just was wondering if somebody can explain the lengthy report and what it was regarding to. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gleason.
Madam President, I'm going to need to poll the room.
All right.
If that is what you would like. If not, you let me know.
No, please go ahead and poll the room.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to see if there's anybody else that would like to speak this morning. If you've been muted from our end, you'll need to use ** to unmute yourself. Anybody else who would like to speak under public comment this morning? I see no one else that would like to speak this morning.
All right. Thank you very much, Justine, for monitoring that. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. Mr. Mulligan, would you like to offer a response to any of the comments?
Yes, sorry, I had to unmute myself. With respect to Shane Weinstein's comments, the CARES Act money that we've received has all been spent on paying staff and on transit operations. And we're very optimistic that Congress will act in the next couple of days. And if they act, the district will spend what money it receives on staffing, paying staff, and on transit operations. And we will not use that money for capital projects. He is right that there are some hurdles if one wanted to, but the intent of the board all along has been to sustain our operations with federal assistance. And we look forward to that action. And I'll talk a little bit more about that under the GM report. So, but we are cautiously optimistic that there will be something, actually more than cautiously optimistic. It looks actually quite good. There's a couple of hurdles that will be resolved in the next few days. And like I said, when it comes time to the GM report, I'll talk a little bit about that and some next steps that affect all of your calendars.
Thank you very much. That concludes public comments to the board. Madam Secretary, would you please continue to the next item on the agenda?
Thank you. Item 5 is to approve the consent calendar, including approval of minutes from the special board meeting of November 13, as well as ratification of previous actions by the Auditor Controller. Similar to the Finance Auditing Committee report yesterday when we reported, the holidays in November and December pushes our meetings to earlier dates than usual. So our meeting minutes were not finalized in time for today's board meeting for the later November meetings. In January, we usually use that time to catch up. And at that time, we'll have the November 19th, 20th meetings, as well as the December meetings on the consent calendar. So I apologize for that in advance. The consent calendar is currently located on page 5 to 14 of your packet. And that's all I have to report.
Thank you very much. Before we take our vote, are there any questions from board members on the consent calendar?
Do you need a motion?
Yes, we do.
I'll move consent.
All right, I have a motion to approve the consent calendar. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. Madam Secretary, would you please do a roll call?
Thank you. Starting with Director Arnold.
Aye.
Director Fredericks.
Yes.
Yes. Director Garbarino.
Yes.
Yes. Director Grosball.
Yes.
Yes. Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Aye. Director Hill.
Yes.
Director Maston.
Yes.
Director Moylan.
Yes.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Sears.
Yes.
Director Sobel.
Aye.
Director Stephanie.
Aye.
Thank you. Director Yee.
Aye.
Second Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
First Vice President Theriault.
Yes.
And President Parr.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. That motion passes unanimously, 16-0.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The item is adopted. Would you please introduce the next item?
Item number 6A is the report of the General Manager, and that staff report can be found on page 15 of your packet, and Dennis is here to present his report. Go ahead, Dennis.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'll start by talking about COVID-19 and the impacts on the district and some very encouraging news that will probably necessitate as early as middle of next week a special board meeting. With the advent of the pandemic, we've seen a precipitous drop of travel in the corridor. In my written report, I say that our bus ridership's down 80%. We're only carrying 20% of our normal bus ridership. And our ferry ridership is down 97%. We're only carrying 3% of our normal ridership. And bridge traffic is down about 32%. Subsequent to the staff report being prepared, the Bay Area has imposed more stringent stay-home orders. And those stay-home orders place greater restrictions on business and community activities. And so we've seen a further drop in those numbers in the last week. The CARES Act money that we received has run out. We have fully expended it. We received $51.6 million. And at this juncture, we are spending our emergency and operating reserves as we speak to keep our bus and ferry operations going. The good news, though, is that while additional coronavirus relief legislation has been quite elusive in Washington, D.C. for about half a year now, things have changed. And just to remind everyone on the line, at your November 13th meeting, the board approved measures to address the financial cliff arising from the global pandemic by reducing costs via layoffs. The board took that action with the clear understanding that in the event that Congress passes legislation that includes significant and sufficient coronavirus relief funding for the district, that a special board meeting can be convened so the board can consider different options. And at this juncture, it's very, very encouraging. There's a couple of hurdles that they'll have to overcome that don't address transit funding in the next couple of days. The federal government will close this evening at midnight, absent a continuing resolution or closure on this deal. If they do a continuing resolution, it's anticipated to be only a day or two. The bill does not have everything for everybody in it, and so I want to clearly acknowledge that. Our hearts go out to our city and state colleagues because the current draft of the bill does not include any money for them. Fortunately for the Bridge District, transit money is not lumped in with city and county funding. It's lumped in with a transportation pot. There's $45 billion in the current draft of the bill as of this morning for transportation. That includes airlines, airports, Amtrak, commercial bus operations, commercial freight, and transit. The current draft language has $15 billion nationwide for transit. For perspective, the CARES Act, which was passed in March, had $25 billion nationwide for transit. So this provides about 60% of the money for transit. That having been said, preliminarily, the formulas in the current draft language are favorable for the Bay Area. So if the bill is enacted or signed in the next couple of days, which appears quite likely, we will convene a special board meeting a couple days later where we would present the new information, present the impact to the district's finances, along with recommendations to reconsider the actions that you took at your November 13th meeting. And so I want to make sure that the public is aware of that and that we're looking forward to what's going on in DC reaching a conclusion, and that conclusion will trigger action by our boards. I'll shift to other topics in my GM report, unless maybe I'll pause there to say, are there any questions from board members on that before I go into the rest of my GM report?
All right, Madam Secretary, I think that's a good idea to bifurcate it here. Would you please call on board members who have questions just about the information that the general manager has presented to date?
Got it. Thank you. Any board members with questions for the general manager on this topic?
Yes, thank you very much. With all due respect, at yesterday's meeting of the Finance Committee, Shane, I believe, stated that a proposal had been submitted with alternative actions that we had to take on November 13th. Specifically, my question is, did they propose actions that would actually mitigate to the extent of the losses that we have experienced? Thanks in advance for answering my question.
Certainly. To be candid, it's a high bar for them to achieve with respect to furloughs to save the same amount of money as the layoffs. So they worked very hard over the last couple of weeks to come up with proposals for furloughs. Those proposals offered some furloughs, but they also added some costs back. It included things such as golden handshakes for up to 20 weeks of pay for more tenured employees to leave. And the net result of all that was savings that did not come anywhere near approaching the levels that we would achieve with the layoffs. They worked very hard, but it's a high bar to achieve, and they were not able to achieve that bar.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you. Board members?
Madam Chairman, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Dennis, what was the total amount of money that we received for the CARES Act?
We received $51.6 million for the CARES Act. We received that money, and it is now fully expended.
Yeah, thank you. Madam President?
Thank you. Yes.
Director Rabbit, just to follow up
Yes.
on that, Dennis, my first, and I'm happy to hear there's some movement, obviously, on the transit front. I know that through a couple of other committees I'm on, I heard that the transit dollars were about a third of what they were in the CARES Act, and you said that that with the Bay Area formula maybe being more favorable, that it can be as high as 60%. Can you expand upon that just briefly?
Sure. Actually, it'll be higher than 60% for the Bay Area, though I probably don't want to talk too much about it if other parts of the country are still listening. The straight numbers are that the CARES Act had $25 billion nationwide for transit, and the proposed legislation is currently drafted has $15 billion nationwide for transit. So the current legislation has 60%, 60, of the amount that was in the CARES Act. So if they doled it out by the same formulas as the CARES Act, we would get 60% of that. So instead of $1.3 billion for the Bay Area, we would get about between $700 and $800 million in the Bay Area. However, there are formulas in the draft legislation that deal with the nuances of various federal funds, programs, and operating budgets for transit agencies. And so those formulas are favorable for the Bay Area. So I anticipate that if there's no change in the legislation and if it passes this weekend like we anticipate, that it will provide sufficient funds for us to take an action that would, I think, be welcomed by the speakers that you heard this morning.
I appreciate that. And as you know, too, I think once it does get to MTC and as we go through that process, those agencies that are more dependent upon fare box tolls like the bridge obviously have been hit differently and more severely than those that have been financed through sales tax and or general fund, which hasn't taken quite the same hit that was anticipated when the first CARES Act went through. So it'll be interesting to see how that formula is changed and the bridge can be better off for it. But I appreciate all the work. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Rabbit. And like you, I've had conversations with MTC about the prior formulas and like the things that you just stated about sales tax versus tolls and fares. So thank you for your advocacy.
All right, thank you. Are there other board members who have questions on this particular part of the General Manager's report? If not, General Manager Mulligan, would you please continue with your report?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I just want to highlight a couple items before I talk about our employees. First is that the district has been changing how we provide medical benefits in order to reduce costs for a large number of our workforce, about 500 folks. We're switching employees from the current district plans into CalPERS plans. CalPERS purchases medical benefits for 1.4 million people or individuals. So they have a tremendous buying scale that produces lower costs. And I want to acknowledge our staff that's been working on that. Alice Ng, Stephanie LaRue, Catherine Mitchell, Sally Davidson, and Maria Rodriguez. They've worked tirelessly over the last several months to transition folks into these new medical offerings to assist the district in saving money. So I want to give them a shout out and say thank you to all of them. There's a variety of other items in my written report, but I'll jump to recognitions. I want to share with the board that Kevin Radich is retiring. He's our electrical superintendent here at the Bridge Division. He's been with the district for over 36 years, and he will be greatly missed. He has an unusual ability to look ahead and to avoid pitfalls that commonly befall projects when people are focused on the moment. And he's been instrumental in many of the projects here at the bridge. When he joined the Bridge District back in 1984, I believe we had only 2 cameras at the bridge. Now we have a highly sophisticated security system in place. He's been involved in many, many projects, and we wish him all the best in a long and happy retirement. Another individual who's leaving us is Sidney Thomas. Sid has been with us for over 26 years. He is our ferry maintenance manager in our ferry division. So he's responsible, along with others, to make sure that our ferry boats are available to get out on the bay every day. Before COVID, we were operating during the summer months without any spare vessels, so he and his team worked magic to get the service out. He joined the district in 1994 as a mechanic and was promoted to his current position in November of 2016. Of note, he has been awarded the Employee of the Month award 3 times. In his spare time, among other activities, he volunteers to help the underprivileged. And of special note, in his youth, he was given an award for the first newspaper route over the Arctic Circle in North America, when he delivered newspapers by foot to an Eskimo village where it was north of any other civilization in North America, and temperatures were quite often as much as 50 degrees below zero. So he has a long storied history, and we wish him all the best in retirement. Another individual leaving us is Tony Clark. He's the Director of Schedules and Service Development in our bus division. He's retiring from the Bridge District after 24 years, about 24 and a half years. We will greatly, greatly miss him. While he's retiring from the Bridge District, he's not retiring from the industry. He's moving to Portland to manage all the bus and rail scheduling in Portland. So it is their gain and our loss, and we wish Tony all the best, and we will continue to keep in touch with him. We have 2 other presentations that we would normally make if we're meeting here in the boardroom. One of those is the 25-year service award to Brian Russell. Brian is a bridge painter in the Bridge Division. He's been with us for 25 years as of December 14th. He originally started as a bus servicer, and he was promoted to a variety of jobs, so ultimately entering a painter apprenticeship program and becoming a bridge painter. And he enjoys a variety of outdoor activities with his family in his spare time. And finally, I want to acknowledge 20 years of service to Del West. Del is our chief electrician here at the bridge. He celebrated 20 years of the Bridge District yesterday, actually today, December 18th. He joined us as an electrician in 2000. He was promoted to chief electrician a couple years ago. And I want to give him a shout out. Most recently, under his leadership, we modernized our electric powerhouse at the bridge. And when COVID is done, you have the opportunity to come here. I encourage you to take a look at it. It's an incredibly impressive project. That's it for retirements and for service awards. Finally, we have the Employee of the Month. The Employee of the Month committee has selected Roland Fontias Jr. From the Ferry Division as the Employee of the Month for December 2020. He is a terminal assistant in the Ferry Division. He receives this prestigious award in recognition of his stellar customer service with customers. He goes out of his way, he smiles, and takes great pride in his work, and he encourages his coworkers to do the same. He is incredibly meticulous, high-quality work products. He's accurate, and he does his tasks quickly. Prior to coming to the Bridge District, he worked as a professional painter. So that's quite clear because in the COVID era, the majority of our terminal assistants and deckhands are not on ferry boats. They're on shore doing minor maintenance projects paid for with CARES Act money. So during the pandemic, he's done painting projects at the Larkspur and San Francisco ferry terminals, and we're very appreciative of the quality of the work he does, as well as his special attitude. His coworkers remark that they can trust and rely upon him, and they just appreciate how he conducts himself. He was born in the Philippines. He lives in San Bruno with his wife Hazel and their children Ron and John, and he enjoys playing basketball and volleyball in his free time. That concludes my report. I'm available to answer any questions you might have.
This is Barb. I just need to make a comment. I think we all miss seeing people's faces. When you hear about the years of expertise that are retiring and how fascinating and diverse our Employee of the Month is, I hope you all notice that that they continue to have their pictures taken in the boardroom at some point, and their pictures generally show up in the annual report. So while we don't get to see them right now, sometime we get to see their pictures at least. Are there other comments from the board members? All right, thank you. General Manager Mulligan, do you have other things to report?
I do not, Madam President. That concludes my report.
All right. There are no actions to ratify under the General Manager's report this month, so no action is required by the board. I assume that anyone that has had a question has asked it, but I will ask one more time. If you have questions on the General Manager's report, please ask them now. All right, hearing none, Madam Secretary, would you please introduce the next item?
Thank you. Item 6B is the report of the attorney, and staff report is found on page 25 and on the line. Kim Manolius is here to provide his report. Kim, please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Again, as Amaret said, my written report's before you at 2526 in the packet. Happy to take any questions on that. Secondly, there will not be a closed session, although one is indicated on the agenda today. And finally, I wanted to let everyone know, although I did send out a memo yesterday, that we've gotten a very, very favorable result in the Saliani class action cases. And I was going to have Alex Atencio come and speak very briefly today, but she's actually in deposition on the other class action cases that the district and BATA are in. So we will do a closed session in January to discuss. We have a case management conference in the Saliani cases right after the first of the year, so we'll have a little bit better idea of what's going to happen, and we'll so inform you there. But I did send everyone the decision, so if anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Would you please call on board members who have questions or comments?
Thank you. Are there any board members for questions for the attorney?
Not a question, but a comment. Brian Sobel.
Go ahead.
Okay. Hey, Kim, I just want to acknowledge your memo on the case and to congratulate you and all of Hanson Bridget for tremendous work on that. And as usual, you all are top flight professionals who represent the district so very well. So congratulations on that. And if you'd pass that along, I'd appreciate it. I know the board would. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Sobel.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Oh, I'm sorry, President Parr. I was just thanking Director Sobel. Thank you very much.
All right, I thought it was another board member. Are there other board members who have questions or comments? All right, hearing none, Madam Secretary, would you please introduce the next item?
Item number 6C is the report of the chief engineer, and the December 17th Building and Operating Committee was canceled. Therefore, the chief engineer's report is found on page 27 of your board packet and included here. We have the Ava Bauer-Furbish on the line to provide a report. Ms. Furbish, go ahead.
Thank you, Amaret. So I would like to start with a little update on the suicide deterrent project. The work is progressing both in the fabrication shops as well as here at the site. It is amazing how, despite the pandemic, we are able to keep going. So this is credit to all people, all workers and engineers involved in this project. We reached a very important milestone. On December 3rd, on December 8th, a shipment of the net fabric was delivered to the storage yard at Richmond. So, and the shipments will continue in following months. Also, we see the additional net supports to be installed on the suspension bridge. Additional 460 linear feet of wind fairing, has been installed and additional 200 linear feet of the new bridge railing. Also, this past Tuesday, my staff and I met with the top management of AECOM Construction Division to discuss the status of the project. And as you are aware, the project is experiencing a delay. So that was the focus of this meeting, to basically continue within this group to discuss the ways that we can improve on the timing when construction will be done. In addition to the suicide deterrent project, as I mentioned last month, we have under construction a marsh restoration project in Corte Madera. And because of the quite long, dry conditions, the project is progressing really well. On December 10th, the channel was, the berm of the channel was completed and flooded. So this is a big milestone. It means that the job is basically about 70% complete. In addition to it, we have ongoing project, another very long lead project in Novato, where we are doing site cleanup. And because of the dry conditions, this job been progressing really well. As you can imagine, if we have to remove a substantial amount of soil from the site, soil that was contaminated with diesel, this type of work benefits greatly if there is no rain. So the contractor has been able to complete about 80% of removal of the contaminated soil right now. So I would like to briefly also answer questions posed by Mr. Gleason about the engineer's report. It is quite a long, voluminous few pages of the report, and the idea is that, as you can see in the report, a lot of projects to take a long time to develop and bring from the initial idea through the design into construction. So for the sake of keeping the proper context, anytime we dealing with new milestone on any specific project, we believe it is good for everybody who may want to read this report to have this historical information that provides proper context and probably better understanding of the projects we are working on. And while some of the updates are 1 or 2 sentences, what's behind this additional information is the work of many, many people. So, for example, if we talk about installation of new traveler rails on the bridge on the suicide deterrent, it means that there were many iron workers, painters, bridge engineers inspecting the project. There were engineers in my department reviewing work plans and verifying that they are followed. And then we have people in my department responsible for verifying the progress of work, so we can, at the end of the month, pay the contractor. We are processing those bills as well. So I would like to explain it because it appears that it may not be so obvious on the face value when we add sentences to the engineer's report what's really going on behind. So I thank Mr. Gleason for asking the question because this provided an opening for me to provide this explanation. With this, I'll be happy to answer any question the board may have for me.
Thank you, Ms. Bauer-Furbish, and thank you for answering the question about the length of the report from Mr. Gleason, too. Are there any questions from the board related to the engineer's report?
Madam President?
Yes.
I just actually would like to compliment and thank Ms. Bauer-Furbish for the volume and form of her reports. I've appreciated them on a consistent basis. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Are there other questions or comments? If not, let's pause for a moment and check with the members of the public who wish to speak to the board on matters related to action items on the agenda under 8A and 8B. Could you please check the line?
Thank you. We're going to do that now. We also actually received a request to speak under the general manager's report from David Pilpel, so I know he will be speaking as well. So give us a second and we'll pull the line again.
All right.
Thank you. We have two speakers, and so in just 1 second, Justine's going to introduce the first speaker.
Thank you.
Good morning. We have David Pilpel who will be speaking on item 6A. David, go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Great. David Pilpel again. On item 6A, the general manager's report, I fear that the continued and enhanced health orders will continue to depress ridership and revenue at the district. I mean, I certainly find it all depressing. I mentioned last month that I heard a rumor that Tony Clark might be retiring soon, and I guess it's true. I think that Tony is only the second head of schedules after Warren Potts, who started when the bus division started up in 1975. Both of them actually were not ones for the spotlight. On Tony, I recognize his service and the others who are retiring or seeing significant service milestones. The frankly hundreds of others currently and thousands over the years who've worked for the district. And I just wanted to note that public service isn't always very public or as political as this board can be on occasion. Some just serve competently and quietly for the public day in, day out. And it's quite refreshing. And you know, I just wanted to take a moment to really recognize all the work that goes behind the district. It's very much appreciated, even if it isn't always said. I'll leave it at that for the moment. Thank you all very much. Take care.
Thank you for that, Mr. Pilpel.
Our next speaker is Frank Gleason. Frank, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I just wanted to thank the engineer for explaining what my question was about. I felt that I had written to the newspapers mentioning, you know, the suicide deterrent system and its cost overruns. And I'd also mentioned that when this suicide deterrent system was first approved in 2008, it was pretty much put out to the public that, you know, toll money wasn't going to be used to, you know, fund it. So when it did have these large cost overruns, which, you know, happens on many, many projects, whether it's, you know, roof on my house or plumbing or, you know, a bridge, there's going to be cost overruns. But I think clarity is very important. I also think that it's very important that the public knows the original intent. And I also wanted to be sure that the suicide deterrent system was not taking away from one of the main goals of the Golden Gate Bridge District, which is not only to have the bridge, it's a highway and transportation district, and that's why it was created as that. So I think that I would appreciate that the board members understand that transit, the ferry, and the toll payers all should be looked after. And I'm worried that when the COVID ends, that some of these bus systems will not be put back in place. Some of the routes that have been cut, in fact, the majority of your commute bus has been cut. So I just like to draw attention to that so that that could be on the front burner. As COVID, we come out of it. Hopefully these vaccines will take place. Hopefully people will change their lives and we'll go back to normal. It's a big thing to guess and hope for, but that's what I'm hoping for. So anyway, thank you for your time. And I want to say, Mr. Sobel, I appreciate your service. And I want to thank you for all you helped me with, and good luck in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gleason. Are there other speakers?
No, Madam President, we have no one else that wished to speak today.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, would you please continue with the agenda?
Sorry, I was on mute. We'll move on to item 8 since there are no other reports under item 7. Item number 8A is the report of the Finance Auditing Meeting of Thursday, yesterday, December 17th, and that summary of recommendations for that meeting is found on page 61 of your packet.
Thank you. Chair Sobel, would you please begin your committee's report to the board?
Yes, and may I start, Madam President, by thanking the kind words by the people who have spoken. It is true that I'm leaving the board. I'm very proud of my service with the board and wish everybody the very best. Lots of hard work ahead, but I know everybody is capable and will be able to make it all happen and make it all work. But especially, I would like to acknowledge the comments of Kimberly Renee Gamboa and her family. They've been very important to the Bridge District. They've kept us on point with the Suicide Deterrent Project, and one day it'll be fun to watch the ribbon cutting, which will conclude what has been a most serious project about a most serious issue, suicide and mental health. So with that as a preamble, Madam President, I will introduce the Finance Auditing Committee recommendation for authorization of board agenda item number 8A, 8A1, 8A1 to authorize execution of the Sixth Amendment to the Professional Services Agreement relative to contract number 2007D7 Trust and Investment Management Services for GASB 45 OPEB Trust with PFM Asset Management LLC for a 3-year extension of the term effective March 1st, 2021 through February 29, 2024, with options for 2 additional 1-year terms exercisable by the district at an estimated cost of $1,198,000 for the 5-year period, as detailed in the staff report, and I so move.
Thank you. I have a motion on the item. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Before we take the vote, are there any board members who have a question or comment? I know most of you were at the meeting yesterday, but this is an opportunity if something else has come up. Hearing none, Madam Secretary, would you please do a roll call vote?
Thank you. We have a first by Chair Sobel and a second by Second Vice President Cochran on agenda item 8A1, starting with Director Arnold.
Aye.
Aye. Director Fredericks.
Yes.
Director Garbarino.
Yes.
Director Grosboll.
Yes.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Hill.
Yes.
Director Maston.
Yes.
Director Moylan.
Yes.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Sears.
Yes.
Director Sobel.
Aye.
Director Stephanie?
Aye.
Director Yee?
Aye.
Second Vice President Cochran?
Yes.
First Vice President Serio?
Yes.
And President Parr?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Chair Sobel, would you please continue your report?
Thank you, Madam President. The Finance Auditing Committee is also recommending to receive the independent auditor's financial reports as submitted by Eddie Bailey LLP for the comprehensive annual financial report, which we know as CAFR, for the year ending June 30, 2020, and to receive the independent auditor's communication letter regarding matters related to the audit as detailed in the staff report, and I so move.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we take the vote, are there any board members who have a question or comment on this item? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, please conduct a roll call vote.
Thank you. We're voting on item 8A2 with a first by Chair Sobel and a second by Director Yee, starting with Director Arnold.
Aye.
Aye. Director Frederick?
Yes.
Yes. Director Garbarino?
Yes.
Director Grosboll?
Yes.
Director Hernandez?
Aye.
Director Hill?
Yes.
Director Maston?
Yes.
Director Moylan?
Yes.
Director Rabbit?
Aye.
Director Sears?
Yes.
Director Sobel?
Aye.
Director Stephanie?
Aye.
Director Yee?
Aye.
Second Vice President Cochran?
Yes.
First Vice President Serio?
Yes.
And President Parr?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. That motion passes unanimously as well.
Thank you. Chair Sobel, do you have anything further to report?
Only, Madam President, if I don't get a chance to speak with everyone again before the end of the year, which I hope I do, because I hope Congress acts and we have to have a special meeting, which we'll want to have. I do want to quickly say thank you to all my colleagues on the board and to a wonderful, wonderful district staff from General Manager Mulligan through everybody. And to acknowledge the dozens and dozens of memos, emails, texts, calls that I've received regarding my time on the board, all of which I greatly appreciate. So, Madam President, that concludes my final report.
Thank you, Chair Sobel. There will be an opportunity for us to thank you specifically, and I'll talk about that at the end of the board meeting. But I just need to thank you for your leadership when you took over finance. You also took over the OPEB trust board, or not the trust board, but the OPEB board. You've been gracious, you've been clear thinking, and you've had courage under fire. So I appreciate that as president and as a fellow board member. So we'll have an opportunity. Yes, well, it's very sincere. Madam Secretary, would you please continue with the next item on the agenda?
Item number 8B is the report of the Government Affairs and Public Information Committee meeting that took place this morning. The summary of recommendation for this meeting is found on page 633 of that packet.
Director Cochran, would you please begin your committee's report to the board?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And I ditto your comments about Director Sobel. Anyway, our board agenda item number 8B1 was approve the implementation of the district's 2021 legislative platform as detailed in the staff report, and I so move.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second this.
I second that. Seconded. Did you get that, Amaret?
I did get it.
All right. Before we take our vote, are there any board members who have a question on this item? Again, most of you were at the meeting this morning, but if you've thought of something else, please come forward. Hearing none, Madam Secretary, please conduct a roll call vote.
Thank you. We are voting on item number 8B1 with the first from Second Vice President Cochran and the second by Director Hill, starting with Director Arnold.
Aye.
Thank you. Director Fredericks.
Yes.
Director Garbarino.
Yes.
Director Grosboll.
Yes.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Hill.
Yes.
Director Maston.
Yes.
Director Moylan.
Yes.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Sears.
Yes.
Director Sobel.
Aye.
Director Stephanie.
Aye.
Director Yee.
Aye.
Second Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
First Vice President Tirio.
Yes.
And President Parr.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes unanimously, 16-0.
Thank you. Chair Cochran, do you have anything further to report?
I do not. Thank you. That concludes my report.
All right. Thank you, Chair Cochran. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Would you please continue with the agenda?
Thank you. We're going to move on to item 10, since there is no addresses to the board under item 9. Item number 10A is a report from the Chair of the Nomination of Officers of the Board of Directors for 2021 Advisory Committee. Chair Arnold, please proceed with your Advisory Committee's report and recommendation relative to the selection of officers for 2021.
Thank you very much. And before I get the motion, I just wanted to say I'm just now hearing about Director Sobel leaving, and Brian, I hope we can talk soon, and I want to know how kind and how savvy he is, and that meant a lot to a new director coming on. So, Brian, we'll talk. I just wanted to say that now. And so we will now go to item number 10. And good morning, colleagues. The nomination of officers of the Board of Directors Advisory Committee met on Friday, November 20th, to recommend the following slate of board officers for the second year of a 2-year term through December 2021. That slate consists of Barbara Parr as president, Michael Tirio as first vice president, and Gerald Cochran as second vice president, and I so move.
I have a motion on the item. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. Before we take the vote, are there any board members who have a question on this item? Hearing none, that concludes the discussion on this item. Before we take the vote, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item?
Thank you. We're going to pull the public line right now. Hang on one second.
Hi, good morning. I just want to see if there's anybody who wants to speak on this item. If you've been muted on our end, please hit star to unmute yourself to speak. Anybody wanting to speak this morning? Okay, I see no one. I want to remind you to star to unmute yourself.
All right, hearing none, Madam Secretary, would you please do a roll call vote?
Thank you. We're voting on item number 10A with a first by Chair Arnold and a second by Director Fredericks. So I am starting with Director Arnold for the vote.
Aye.
Aye. Director Fredericks.
Madam Secretary, my understanding is that there will be 3 abstentions on this vote today. The abstentions will be
correct.
myself, Vice President Tirio, and second Vice President Cochran.
That is correct. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
So going back to the vote, Director Arnold was a yes. Director Fredericks?
Yes.
Yes. Director Garbarino?
Yes.
Yes. Director Grosswell?
Yes.
Thank you. Director Hernandez?
Aye.
Aye. Director Hill?
Yes.
Yes. Director Maston?
Yes.
Director Moylan?
Yes.
Yes. Director Rabbit?
Aye.
Aye. Director Sears?
Yes.
Yes. Director Sobel?
Aye.
Aye. Director Stephanie?
Aye.
Aye. Director Yee? Oh, I think we lost Director Yee. Director Yee absent. And I will have an abstention logged in for President Parr, first Vice President Terrio, and second Vice President Cochran. Thank you very much.
Correct.
That motion passes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12 to 0.
All right, thank you. The item passes. It's an interesting and challenging time to serve as an officer on the Golden Gate Bridge Board of Directors. And on behalf of the slate of approved officers, I'd like to express my appreciation to Chair Arnold and members of the advisory committee for recommending the slate of officers, and thank our board colleagues for their vote of approval. Madam Secretary, would you please continue with the agenda?
We move on to item number 10B, and that's discussion and possible action to terminate the suspension of board procedural rules and policies for COVID-19 related emergency actions. Dennis Mulligan's brief staff report is on page 65, and he's on the line to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any board members who have questions for Mr. Mulligan on this item? It's a continuation of this item for the last 2 or 3 board meetings. Hearing none, before we take our vote, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item?
We'll pull the public line now. Thank you. Hang on 1 second.
Thank you.
We have no speakers on this item.
All right, thank you.
Madam President, do you need a motion?
That's just what I was, it's not in my script, but that's just what I was thinking. I believe we need a motion, and I believe it's Director Terrio that usually makes it.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and make it again this time. Thank you.
All right, thank you for the reminder. All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, thank you. Madam Secretary, we have a motion and a second. Would you please call the roll?
Thank you. We have a first and a second on item 10B. I'll start with Director Arnold.
Aye.
Aye. Director Fredericks?
Yes.
Yes. Director Garbarino?
Yes.
Director Grosswell?
Yes.
Director Hernandez?
Aye.
Director Hill?
Yes.
Thank you. Director Meston?
Yes.
Director Moylan?
Yes.
Director Rabbit?
Aye.
Director Sears?
Yes.
Director Sobel?
Aye.
Director Stephanie?
Aye.
Director Yee? Absent. Second Vice President Cochran?
Yes.
First Vice President Terrio?
Yes.
And President Parr?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes 15 to 0.
Thank you. It appears we should not be terminating the suspension of board procedural rules and policies at this time. Now we need to do it again. May I have a motion to revisit this matter at the next regular board meeting on January 22nd, 2021?
Actually, we're okay. That was the vote.
I was thinking, Madam Chair.
That's right.
Oh, I misstated that then. I'm sorry. Well, then we don't have to do it again. All right, we're finished with that one and the motion passes. Thank you for the clarification. We have no unfinished business or new business. Item number 13 is communications. And if you would like a copy of the actual communications, please contact the district secretary's office Thank you to everyone who joined us for today's meeting. Before I ask for a meeting to adjourn this, our regularly scheduled meeting of 2020, our last one, I'd like to take a moment to initially thank our outgoing directors and wish them the very best, as this is their last regularly scheduled board meeting. You'll note that Director Belforte's appointment is up. Director Sobel, as mentioned, was not reappointed by the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors. Director Yee's appointment is tied to a supervisorial seat, as is Director Fewer and Director Sears. I'd highlight that Directors Belforte and Yee served for 7 years, Director Sears served 9 years, and Director Sobel returned to our board twice for a total of 14 years of service. We're losing years of history, courageous and creative leadership, and camaraderie as we welcome newly appointed directors over the next few weeks. To properly honor the service of our outgoing directors, we'll invite them back to say a few words and allow you to publicly appreciate their years of service and thoughtful decision-making if you care to, and to approve resolutions of appreciation for them. In the meantime, I'm certain that a direct personal word of appreciation to any of them from you as a colleague would be well reserved. Thank you for your service. We've reached the end of the agenda and there are no further items to be presented to the board. May I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Excuse me, Madam Chair, please.
Yes, Director Moylan.
John Moylan.
May I have a second? Oh, I'm sorry, John, were you wanting to speak or were you making a motion to adjourn?
No, I want to say a few words about our outgoing directors.
All right.
I'm confused about a lot of stuff. First of all, I thought it was just a rumor when I first heard it that Director Sobel would be retiring, and also Director Del Forte. And I can't understand why these two people have to be, in other words, they have to be fired to accommodate two other people. Now, who's the two people who are going to take their place?
Director Moylan, I would encourage you to either talk to Amaret or to call those directors specifically. All of us are appointed by some body, and the rules for each of those are significantly different. Some of those are tied to terms in other positions, and I think part of our directors that are leaving us have termed out, as they say it, and part of them are appointed by other bodies, and it's the decision of those bodies who they put on the board. So with all due respect, I'd encourage you to contact Amaret or Dennis or one of the directors and find out what their specific circumstance is, if you don't mind.
Well, I was expecting to get some answers here this morning because the first I heard about Director Sobel retiring was yesterday when he announced it himself at the end of the Finance Committee meeting.
Right.
And I'm bothered by it because there's something here that bothers me about this whole thing. I got to have an answer. Maybe it's too late now. I want to have an answer. We should have an answer today. There's no reason why we can't. Why has Director Sobel been eliminated? Why did he ever do wrong to be eliminated? Because I thought he did a hell of a good job for the last how many years you said he was on the board? Somebody answer, please. But I remember when he came back.
I can give you an answer as the president, and knowing what the circumstances of each of the areas are. Director Sobel is appointed by the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors. When his term expires, as with all of us, they ask for applications there were people that applied for his position, and the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors chose to appoint someone other than Director Sobel for that position. And that is their right and their responsibility. And our responsibility is to graciously accept whomever it is that they are putting on our board. So that's the answer I can give you as the president, knowing what the circumstances are for the different ones. Director Belforte, her appointment was tied to the office that she held, an elected office. That elected office went to someone else, which meant that her position on the board went to someone else.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah. So if you want further explanation, you might call Director Sobel and Director Belforte. Okay.
Well,
with
I
that,
will. Because I'm not happy with the answers I'm getting. And, you know, I know maybe I'm out of order. I don't know. Possibly I am.
I'm sorry that you didn't get those answers. I'm sorry you didn't get answers to those questions before the board meeting, but hopefully that answers them, John.
I did.
All right, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
May I have a second? I have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, this concludes the meeting of the Board of Directors. The time is 11:18. Thank you very much.